episode 428 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast of many topics. My name is Wilkerson, and I will be your host today. And today we are here to right a wrong of the past in more ways than one. Many years ago, we had an episode on Undertale that had some audio issues. You can go back and listen to it if you want. And they had some really interesting things to say during that episode. But it didn't turn out well because of some of the audio issues. But today we have a whole new panel today to talk about that 2015 classic Undertale. But before we get into talking about Undertale, allow me to introduce our panel, starting with you, Aleks.
Hello.
And making, once again, it's not even like a triumphant return anymore because you return so often, Alana Hagues.
I made a habit of it, but yes, hello.
Thank both of you for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about Undertale. Full disclosure, I played the entirety of Undertale outside of the genocide route, which I don't have the heart to do, and I never will have the heart to do. I played the entirety of Undertale today. So I did a neutral route and I did a pacifist route today, which gives you an indication of how quickly you can play Undertale. It took me probably 6 hours to get through and play both of these routes. But if you don't know what those routes mean, we'll talk about that. So before we get into talking about our current playthrough of Undertale, I want to talk about sort of our history with Undertale as a game, maybe whether we've played other Toby Fox games before we get rolling here. Starting with you, Alana, what's your history with Undertale?
So basically since, well, I don't want to say day one because Undertale was big on Kickstarter. It was one of like the really mid-2000s Kickstarter successes, and Toby Fox had like a pretty decent following because he was well known on the Earthbound forum starman.net for creating Halloween Hack. And so I'd heard about that. And then I heard about Undertale pretty much right around the time I joined RPG Fan, which was like a month or two before Undertale came out. And then Rob Fenner reviewed it, and then I was like, oh, okay, I need to buy this right away. And so I did, and I played through it in like one night, I think. It was like, I think I finished it at like 2 a.m. in the morning, just a neutral route. And I was like, oh, I see what you're doing now. I understand what this is. And then over like the course of a couple more days, I did the true pacifist route and the genocide route, which just made me not want to pick up the game anymore for a minute. And I've since played it again on PlayStation 4, and I reviewed it for RPG Fan, I think, when that came out. Not my finest work, but also just a good time to revisit that game. And honestly, like, Undertale was a big deal, like, even before it came out. Like, there was like a really fervent fan community around that video game, and of course, like, we'll talk about some of the names and the contributors and everything that have gone into the game. And because most of Undertale is made by Toby Fox, but there are a couple of other people outside of it, like other artists that Toby Fox had worked with, that also worked on it. In terms of like other stuff that he's worked on, I have never played Halloween Hack for Earthbound. I have played Deltarune, which is the, I don't even know whether to call it like a sequel or a spiritual successor or a prequel or like say shared universe video game. And I've never played anything else he's really developed. I know he's like a big deal in like, I mean, he's worked for Game Freak and the Pokemon Company at this point as like a composer. And he's done like music for Smash as well. So it's like you've got like this kid who was like in his like early 20s who made Undertale, and he's now just like this massive household name. All of that is to say is, yes, I played Undertale on release. I loved it. I thought it was really special at the time, and played it again. Still thought it was really special, and replaying it now, I still think it's really special. So yeah, nothing's really changed.
What other conclusion could you come to?
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Aleks?
Yeah, so I didn't really like hear of Undertale like in the lead up to its release, or even like directly upon release. It was shortly after release that I first saw it, and kind of like, I guess, a weird context in terms of like being introduced to it. But I used to like log on to GameFAQs or Game FAQs, but GameFAQs for fun people.
Why would you do that?
Just like for those like polls they used to have.
Yeah.
It just used to be like something like I would do, like start my day with, is just looking at the poll and selecting it. And they had those like bracket battles, like
Yep.
sometimes pitting characters against each other, sometimes pitting games against each other. and it was like one of their like best games of all time bracket battles, and this game Undertale was on it, and it ended up winning. And I'm like, that
Yes.
just immediately caught my attention because I'm like, what? This game like just came out this year, and it's the best game of all time. So I pretty much immediately got it out of curiosity after seeing that like it had kind of like retro JRPG type aesthetics and had like similar kind of style to them. Yeah, it immediately made an impact on me. The first time like you encounter Flowey and he like asks you to catch his friendliness pellets, and I did it, and he's just like, you idiot, I'm trying to kill you. I just like I felt addressed as a player in a more effective way that I ever had before by any game. Sorry, Bioschlock. But it just immediately grabbed me, and I'm like, okay, I need to see what's going on in this game, and proceeded to play through the whole neutral route. I didn't end up killing everything just because, like, based on my interaction with Toriel, I just got the sense that that's not what you're supposed to do. Um, but I did accidentally kill her on my first run, and I felt absolutely terrible about it. I think I actually wrote about that moment in one of the features we did, RPG emotions or something like that. Just the sheer guilt I felt upon thinking like that was what I had to do in that fight, and then Flowey little bastard called me out on it even after loading my game. So that was just another hook that like, oh my god, this game's like paying attention to what I'm doing like outside of save files and stuff. And yeah, I mean, like, really loved the game as I finished it, finished the pacifist route, ended up picking it up again on Switch because there was an extra boss fight, which was quite fun, that I played through on Switch. And then not long after that playthrough, I'm like, okay, I want to see what those boss fights in the genocide playthrough are like. So I did one of those runs, did the Undying the Undying fight, amazing fight. Got to Sans, and he actually like demotivated me to stop playing the game, as was exactly his intention. So I did a couple tries at that, ditched it, and then I just stopped playing. And then we were going to play it again for this podcast, so I actually like loaded up the game and saw that save file staring back at me, and I'm like, okay, I could reset now, or I could give this fight another chance. And I did, and I got near close to the end at the point where he sort of asks to uh whether you'll just like stop fighting him, and I just let him kill me, and then I reset, and then I started this playthrough.
That is a fascinating example of the way this game plays with you, right? Like it's there are other games that I can think of that play around with the genre, right? Like I think of like Near Automata, which certainly owes a debt to this game, um, in the way that it plays around with genre. But like Undertale is still unmatched, um, in the way that it so simply asks you questions, which is not what we're talking about yet. Let me talk about my history with the game. Um, my history with Undertale is probably is definitely less remarkable than either of yours. I actually didn't play it until maybe late 2018, early 2019. So it had been out for a while. I bought it on Switch. Actually, Mike Salvato, our editor in chief, had reviewed the Switch version, and his review is remarkable. Anybody who hasn't read it should go check it out. It's really interesting in the way that he plays around with sort of the genre of reviews with that review. I think it's amazing, but it partially convinced me to play the game, and I played through, and I already knew, obviously, like, given that fact that I came to it so late, like, I knew what Undertale was. It had been such a part of the cultural conversation for so long, and I say so long, 3 years, but it felt like it had been so long, like that. I did a full pacifist run the first time through. Like, you can't do it all the way the first time through, but you can pick it up sort of close to the end with the true pacifist run. And I was blown away by everything that it was doing, but I was mostly blown away by how it was hitting me emotionally. Like the way that it plays around with genre and save files and all that stuff was really cool. And I appreciate the meta elements of it, and the memification of this game is entertaining. But this game is like an emotional experience. Even as I was just playing it, like literally an hour and a half ago, as I was going through some of the final fight sequences, like I was like getting tears in my eyes because it's just such a powerful experience. Um, Emotionally, that's always sort of what draws me to a game, and that's sort of what I really appreciate about Undertale.
And I don't think it could do that either if it was anything but a video game. And it gets to that point you were making earlier. Like, I think, the metatextual stuff is not whatever, but like it's an important part of it. But it is an important part with like playing with you, not playing with your emotions, but like it uses that like medium to like make you feel things, right? Like I don't think if it was like a film or a novel or something like that, I don't think I would feel the same way about Undertale as I would if I was like the person on the other side of on the screen, because we might touch on this later, but really technically the player is a character in the game kind of, and like your decisions are like a huge part of this game and a huge part of the way that you feel. Like there's no way you'd be able to do like the genocide run without prior knowledge, and with that knowledge what would you do with that? Like if your first ever playthrough of this game was like, let's kill everything, then I don't know, there's a lot to dig into there.
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of that emotional impact is just tied to how well it characterizes this whole like world of monsters and like yeah, like the major characters for sure. But even like the little minor characters, like they all have such charming little character designs. If you're doing a pacifist run, you have to use like the act command to like essentially converse with them and try to like feel out what makes them happy, what kind of like bothers them, and sort of like work your way towards like a peaceful ending in a way that's like even for a game to like get like even so much out of like its minor like trash mobs like is so special, and it's like something that really only Undertale has been able to do to the extent it has. But then like going to like kind of the more major characters, I mean like these characters are on like you can feel their presence in like every minute of the game almost,
Mhm.
like as you're like going through each of the levels. Like they're usually like either following along, like showing you like puzzles, like challenging you to puzzles and things like that, or like calling you on your cell phone and like talking with you. And then of course they're the major boss fights of the game as well, which just, oh my god, in terms of like the way this game manages to like build like emotional impact and like narrative development and characterization in the middle of a fight, like that is just uh, an incredible achievement. And each one of this game's boss fights are very special, and it's got honestly some of the best boss fights in just about any game I've ever played.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that struck me this time as I was playing through, and I guess I'll back up for a second here. Um, so, like those of you who haven't played Undertale, first of all, we're going to spoil the bejesus out of this game, and also go play Undertale and stop listening to this because Undertale is way more interesting than anything we have to say about Undertale. No offense to any of us, um, but Undertale kind of gives you this sort of like obvious premise to start with. Like you basically are dropped into a pit and you're walking forward, and you know from like sort of the pre-game sequence, the credits, that there's like been like this f- ancient fight between like monsters and humans, and that there's a separation between them. um and you encounter a flower very early on who, as Alex alluded to, tries to kill you, um even though they're saying they're trying to help you, which I think is really interesting the way that plays out. And then you run into your first major monster character, Toriel, who basically wants to take care of you, wants you to be okay, wants you to live at home, wants you to be there. And then, like in typical JRPG fashion, you're like, no, I don't want to stay at home, I want to leave. And she tries to block your way to the point like that she actually, you actually have to fight her. And it's very early on that you have to do this fight with her, and it is very easy, as Alex did, to to not know like what you're supposed to do with that fight, like because you're like, there's no way I'm going to kill this lady, like she's been so nice.
Hmm.
um and you can quite easily. In fact, in my most recent playthrough today, when I was playing through it, I almost did because I forgot that the only way to interact with her is just to spare her over and over again.
Mhm.
Like talking to her doesn't do anything, doesn't move, doesn't progress the fight in some significant way. So even as someone who's played through the game before, I still almost made that mistake and then had to reset before she actually died. So Flowey did not catch me. Screw you, Flowey. Um, but I remembered as I was doing, it's like, oh yeah, that's how I have to do this. But like very early on, it introduces you to the concepts of this game, and like she is a person who you would never want to kill, even though like she's trying to trap you. Like it's not something that you are that it is in any way malicious, and you can tell it's not malicious. But then from there, like it's such a dense game. Like like there is not a single map or a single screen that doesn't have something interesting happening on it. And I think that's what struck me most is like this all happens in the first 20 minutes. And then for the next 6 hours, like every screen, every moment has something new, has something creative, has something interesting happening. Like it's one of the densest games I've ever played, which is saying something given it's short playtime. Because like usually I'd be like, like it's 6 hours. You didn't have to do that much. They do so much in 6 hours, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, like this game does more with 6 hours than most RPGs do with like 60 to 100 hours. Like it manages, like you said, to fit so much in every single screen. Like you can almost like see like some like adventure game, like especially like old adventure, even like text adventure kind of
I mean,
design
you
at
can
Yeah.
work
definitely
there.
see Moon's influence all
Yeah.
over this, and this
Oh
is so
yeah.
much more dense than Moon on that front.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, but like yeah, each screen is either like some sort of like meaningful like developed interaction with like a specific character, or it's like one of the game's like super like self-referential like puzzles that it has. And I love like the way like puzzles are presented in this game as just like something that monsters just compulsively do, and like just their whole world is just filled with puzzles because like they just like can't help themselves. And the game manages like to get so much humor out of that. Like every like screen of this game is either like contains a great joke that like can make me like laugh out loud, or at least like have like a big grin on my face, or like have like some sort of like emotional like character development moment, and that's incredible. And you spread that throughout like 6 hours, and like you have one of the tightest paced RPGs that's ever been made.
You really have to pay attention to dialogue as well. Like every enemy encounter almost feels like a puzzle too, right? Like by the enemy's design or by like what they are or what they do or how they respond to your actions, there you determine like how to use the act button, which I guess I'm jumping into mechanics a little bit here, but like you very quickly figure out that like, oh wait, so this reindeer is like upset because someone's been putting Christmas decorations on its antlers, so I'll take it off. And then it's like, oh, my load's lighter, and then you can spare them at that point. So it does like a really fascinating thing with like every single character is like very lived and very much a part of this world. And we've compared it to Moon, but like obviously another game, Earthbound, is pretty influential for Toby Fox and for Undertale in general. And I think that Undertale is one of the few games that really gets what Earthbound is trying to do. And I think it makes everything in Undertale feel very natural. Like it's a funny, weird game, but like at no point am I ever like, what the hell? Like this doesn't make sense. Everything contextually makes so much sense. And yeah, Toriel in particular is like, I'd forgotten how much of like a gut punch of a character she is, because she just comes up on the screen after you encounter Flowey and she just like blows him away with fire. And it's like she doesn't really use her power like super often. Whereas like you can tell that like Undyne or Sa or Papyrus even, or like other characters have got like all of these different powers, but Toriel is like, so she is the mother and she is the personification of a JRPG tutorial. And that whole like level through the ruins is like that mechanic distilled into a single character, but she's also like so much more than that. She's such a rich introductory character, and she's extremely important as well, as everyone is to the game and the story.
But yeah, I think you're right that she does like make such a important like first impression on the player. I think one of the first screens of the game is like you have like this bed of spikes that you have to traverse through, and like you sort of get a hint from like one of the game's signs that like, oh, like the outline of like the path in the previous room is like
Hmm.
how you should walk through the spikes and like be safe. And like you see that as a player and you're like, all right, let's go to these spikes and like do this little challenge. And then she's like, actually, like, I don't think you're ready for like this puzzle. It might hurt you. And she like literally like takes your hand and holds your hand as she walks you through the spikes. And it's just like, oh my god, this is so wholesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I didn't touch on that. Like, I think the tutorial of this game is like, it's not something that I think people talk about a lot, but it is also one of the most brilliant parts of this game,
Hmm.
and one of the most brilliant tutorials I've ever seen. That it manages to communicate so much in such a like a little amount of time. And I think that extends forward into the snow region, right? Like when you like go after you leave Toriel, and she's like, "All right," assuming you're doing the correct route, Alex, and you don't kill her. Um, and she's like, "All right, you were obviously strong enough to, like you want to do this, you want to leave. Okay, cool, go." And then like you encounter Sans and Papyrus, who were two of the most delightful characters in video games, by a huge freaking margin. They're so good. Like I feel like I could say that about every major character in this game. Like Asgore is delightful, Undyne is delightful. Like all the major characters in this game like leave such an impact and such a presence. But the way that it plays around with the tutorial in the beginning, and then the way that it plays around with puzzling and like with the nature of puzzles with Papyrus in particular, I think is really really fun. And I think the whole snow area is, to me, like that is the best part of this game, because I love the dynamic with Sans and Papyrus, and how Sans thinks that Papyrus is so cool when we know deep down that Sans is like a mega killer,
Right.
especially if you have any knowledge of the genocide route, um, where he is the super mega boss. So yeah, I love that sequence as well.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite segments of the Snowden region, with like those two characters is like when like you get to like this part where there's like a bunch of like tiles and like they have like different colors, and Papyrus is just giving you this like extremely convoluted description of just like, okay, so like a yellow tile will like shock you, a red tile will like push you back, a blue tile will like move you two spaces forward, and like then like you have like all this setup and you're just like, okay, are you ready? Okay, we're doing it. And then like the puzzle's about to start and then like there's like a malfunction, and so you just get to like walk through it.
It's like a pink path with like yellow either side of it, isn't it? And or something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's just like it completely undermines everything he's done. And I like he just like roll out of the room afterwards. He
Yeah,
like
yeah, he just
stands
like
and what
spins around.
he like leaves the room. Yeah, Papyrus is a goof, but like he is like one of my favorite characters. Like I mean, everybody is. Like, why would I say that? But like Papyrus is a really interesting character between like all three routes because he is this just like endlessly like energetic, optimistic character. And like even in a genocide route, like a lot of the stuff plays out very similarly in that route.
Mhm.
And Papyrus will like still try and do the puzzles, but the difference is your character will just not interact with those puzzles at all. Like you don't have to do any puzzles in the genocide route, which is kind of it's just
What?
it yeah.
How can you explain how that happens?
I mean, there's no monsters to make any of them function, so why would there
Huh?
be? Like, yeah.
Interesting. Huh?
But like for Papyrus and Sans' section in particular, like you just totally ignore them. Like he starts explaining the block puzzle and your character just like walks over the
Mhm.
gray, and Sans Papyrus is like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Why are you not?" And then Sans tells you, he's like, "Hey, you know, you might actually find puzzles fun if you interact with them." And like, Sans is like pushing you to try and like get you to do the right thing in his way. So they're a really interesting dynamic. But like, obviously, Papyrus's best moment is when you fight him and he dabs marinara sauce behind his ear. Which why would he have ears anyway, as a skeleton? Um, but yeah, Papyrus is delightful, and he like he yeah he manages to like stand out I mean, everyone does. I don't really know how much more I can say about multiple characters. Just gonna gush about them.
No, I mean, I think that, if I had to pick a favorite, I think I would pick Papyrus. And I I actually think that, like, one of the things we haven't really talked about yet is the way that combat works in this game, which, we've talked about it a little bit, but you touched on it a little bit with Papyrus, which is, like, in any given battle, you have options in terms of, like, fighting where, like, basically, like, how close, like, there's basically this cursor that that's cursor, but, like, this line that moves towards the middle, and the closer to the middle you get, the more damage you do. But if you're doing what I think is the intent, I don't know if there's an intended route, but, like, the route that gives you the most emotional satisfaction,
Hmm. Hmm.
you're not doing that very often because you also have the act function, which allows you to, interact with the different enemies in a variety of different ways, which is a puzzle in and of itself. Um, and the bosses in particular, really play around with that idea. Some of the later ones, I think, do it in really interesting ways. Um, but I think that it's most interesting with Papyrus because, like, you kind of have to fight Papyrus at the same time. Like, you have to get him down to half health, if I remember correctly. Like, correct me if I'm wrong on this. To get him to say, like, "Hey, we'll be friends." That's after you flirt with him, and you're trying to get him to go on a date with you, and then he's like, "Well, you've taken this as far as you can go. Now we got to fight." And then he fights for a certain amount of time. And I think Alex touched on this earlier. The Papyrus fight, because the monsters are all hunting you because they want your soul. Um, like, the Papyrus fight, I think, is a great encapsulation, and maybe one of, I think, the most interesting fights in terms of the variety that this game has. And as I can't remember, someone alluded to earlier, like, even, like, the random encounters, like, are interesting because they force you to think about what's in front of you, what they're saying, what they want, to, like, kind of get them to stand down. Um, and I think if you didn't, it's interesting because, like, I'm really curious for you, Alana. Like, I knew what Undertale was. Like, I knew I needed to get everyone to stand down. Like, I knew that was what the goal of this game was. But, like, I don't think that everybody would sort of have that expectation going in, even when they're telling you, like, "Hey, you shouldn't do this." And the monster characters like Sans and Papyrus and Toriel are so compelling and so interesting and so sympathetic. Um, like, I guess I wonder, how much the game telegraphs that to someone who doesn't know.
Right, because like I guess when I first played it, it was like pretty new, but I kind of knew, and I kind of picked it up pretty quickly as well. I was like, and as you were saying earlier, Zach, like I didn't want to kill Toriel, but as I was playing through it today, because I started a genocide route, I was like, what if you just didn't pick up on anything, or what if you just didn't think about it? You know, like if you were just going through it normally and like fighting things and per normal, because like most enemies in the ruins die in one hit, and actually most enemies in general for the first half of the game die in one hit, including bosses. Like Toriel dies in one hit, Sans dies, Papyrus dies in one hit, and it's like, oh my god, like that's like how much power that your character has. But like if you kill Toriel, you do really feel like that level of guilt, as Aleks was saying earlier. Like that feels like the moment where you just like feel awful because she says something like, "Oh, so you really do hate me, don't you?" And it's like,
Hmm.
No, like what? No way. Like there's no way you could really hate her. She's overprotective, but there's a reason she's overprotective. And Papyrus as well, like he is like, even though you like kill him in one hit, he's like, I know everything you've done, I see everything you've done, I still believe in you. That's like the last thing he says to you, and it's like, it's almost like if you hit that 50% route, like, which is basically what the end of Snowden is, it's like, what you like totally miss the boat by that point. Like it really tries its best to hammer it home to you. So I think the signs are there basically. But I said earlier, it's impossible to do a genocide route one first time if you don't know what you're doing. Because you have to kill every single enemy in every single area. Um But yeah, essentially, if you're not picking up what the game's putting down by at least Sans, I would say. Not Sans. Why am I getting the brothers mixed up today? Like, then yeah, I think it's pretty obvious at that point.
Yeah, I don't think it's really like, unless you knew, I don't think it's even that easy to fall into a genocide route by accident, because not only do you have to like kill every
Mm-hmm.
enemy you encounter, you actually have to like linger in the areas a little bit longer. Just like keep triggering random encounters, so you keep killing until like the
Mm-hmm.
next time you trigger a random encounter, you basically get like a screen with nothing in front of you, and then it's just like nobody was there.
Yeah, nobody came. I something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's
So
and the music completely changes as well.
Oh
So
yeah, it becomes like
yeah.
completely distorted, no longer the unbelievable soundtrack,
Mm-hmm.
pleasure to your ears that you get for the regular game. But and then yeah, once you kill Toriel, she says like something along the lines of like, "Oh, it's I thought I was protecting you, but it turns out I was protecting everybody outside of here from you." So like the game is clearly flagging you as like a complete monster at that point. Um, but in terms of like playing the game with killing some monsters, I imagine like some people like did
Yes.
just encounter like a regular like neutral route on their first playthrough, even though it's like it's hard not to like pick up on what Toriel's putting down in front of you. But like I guess because she is just like a character in the game rather than like a menu pop up like explaining how the game works, that people
Mm-hmm.
like overlook it and just see experience points and level, and they're just like, oh yeah, this is an RPG, this is what I do, this is how I progress. But I mean, like as we learn late in the game, like it's not experience points, it's execution points, and level isn't level, it's level of violence.
Uh huh. Love is level of violence. Yeah.
Or love, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because like there are other games out there that before Undertale had played with this concept, right? Like I'm gonna keep coming back to Nier, but like I think Nier's DNA is so much tied to Undertale. Like you think about like what you do in the second and third and fourth route of the original Nier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you know what you're doing. And you keep doing it anyway because you have to get the best ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this game does not reward you with the best end. I don't know what the ending for for the execution for the genocide route is, but like it doesn't reward you in the same way. It challenges you, sure. Like Sans, who I'll just say, like getting a little ahead of ourselves, is like this known challenge boss. Like everybody, like when you talk about like the top 10 hardest bosses, Sans comes up in the conversation. No one else in Undertale ever does. Although I really struggled on the very last pacifist boss a lot in this last playthrough. Um, and so like the rewards aren't there, and it telegraphs it. Like whereas in other games, like it basically the only option is you have is like stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's like keep playing but play it in the right way. And also like you're so rewarded. I think about like the two guards you get in what is it, Hot Pit or whatever the heck it's
Hotland.
called.
Yeah. The
Hotland, those
yeah.
two guards,
Oh yeah.
and their loving relationship that they have. Like there's so much pleasure that you get out of being kind in this game,
Uh huh.
that you don't get, because like I was watching you play through the genocide route, and you're like, God, this is so boring. You're just walking around. Like I saw you looking at your phone like every 30 seconds
I had
as you're
it like,
doing it.
yeah, in one hand I had my phone, in my other hand the Steam Deck was like walking around in circles
Right,
because like the more enemies you kill in an area, the fewer random encounters you get
right.
because you're killing the population. It's
Right.
like really, it really like I think one of the most interesting things that a genocide route does do, like I like morally I hate it, and like it completely like drives home a lot of the themes of like the other two routes that I think are way more rewarding and way more important. But one of the things I think the genocide route does really well is like it really calls out you as a player of RPGs, right? It like plays on all of those tropes, like, and it's the same thing that Moon does, right? With that like tutorial where you like level up and you with the when you're playing the game Moon in Moon, you're playing as that character and you become really overpowered and then they become the villain. And then that's kind of what the genocide route is playing off of, I
Hmm.
feel like. It's like you gaining all of this love by killing people, and you're killing everything, and like, you're not even rewarded at the end. Like, if you do a genocide route on Steam, you are absolutely screwed out of doing a pacifist run ever again unless you go into your files and delete everything. Like, you have to like go out of your way to like fix what you've done. Otherwise, if you load the game up after a genocide run, the game will always acknowledge at some point, even at the end of a attempted pacifist run, you can never ever 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 undo that mistake. So yeah, I think mechanically the genocide run is super interesting, but like it is a way of like I think Undertale like really rewards or is really the most beneficial or rewarding to people who are really familiar with RPGs generally, like the way it plays with terminology and the way that it plays with player expectations and what we do all the time in RPGs, like all the grinding that we do. Like, how many times have we all walked around in circles in like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy or something just to gain experience points on a world map? Whereas here it's like, what are you doing? Like, why is there's nothing left for you here? You've killed everything.
Yeah, I mean the genocide run is like it's like one of the most interesting representations of like true evil or
Mm,
villainy I've seen in any video game tackle, and the villain is literally the player. Because like it is like a repetitive, draining experience, but that's exactly what it's trying to do. It's trying to like show you how much like someone who's like truly evil like can isolate themselves and like disconnect from like what's in front of them and like the people in front of them, and like these representations that are supposed to like elicit empathy and other emotional responses and things like that. It asks you to disconnect from all of that in order just to complete it, and that's a fascinating thing.
mhm,
It also like on that note like just connects you a lot more to Flowey and gets you like to see what he sees and to like understand that villain and what he's been experiencing, because he essentially, as like somebody who's kind of like disconnected from the, the diegetic world itself and can like see you as a player, he also is like a being who has like played Undertale,
mm,
and has like bonded with the characters and gotten like the pacifist ending before, but then just because that's all he can do, that is his whole reality, he got like disillusioned with it and started to see it as a construction, and then just out of curiosity started to like do these evil things because he could no longer like connect with the other characters in the world before. And so the genocide route on like kind of developing Flowey as a character is also fascinating, because like so much of the pacifist route just puts Flowey as like this anomaly that just like needs to be dealt with and is the true threat to the world. But the genocide route like shows you what Flowey is and gets you to like understand him, which is just fascinating.
mhm.
And I'm curious, I guess we can kind of talk about this in terms of routes here. When you get to the end of the genocide route, like, is there any indication that Flowey is involved, or are you like the new Flowey, or like how does that all play out?
So, um, God, I don't remember specifics, but there's like one moment where like you are talking to Flowey and he like recognizes who you are. Truly, the character you're playing as. And he's like scared and wants you to like stop. I don't remember if that's before or after Sans or
It's before.
yeah, okay. But the very end of the route is a completely different character who is referred to throughout the game, but it gets a little like meta again. It plays on the idea of like what Aleks was saying, like the player is the villain. I mean, if you're doing a genocide route, you probably know who Flowey actually is at this point. And it's explained vaguely in the pacifist route when you go through the true lab. At least that's what I picked up on the first time, and then rereading stuff this time around, I was like, oh yeah. Um, but yeah, there's like not a clear cut of like you are. It's an interpretation, but it's one that I believe in.
Yeah, so if I remember right, basically like as you're going through the genocide run, like they're just other NPCs just stop appearing in the
Mhm.
world because they're all either dead or like have run away from you. Um, and so the only NPC that you do converse with throughout that run after Toriel and or after Papyrus rather, but Flowey appears after you kill Toriel and sort of like start the run properly. Is there and like he's happy with you and he wants to be there for the ride and he wants to follow along with you and he's encouraging of you. And so you just like keep going along that and you actually create like a connection with Flowey
Mhm.
in a way that you never get to do in any of the other routes. And then it's like that final like hallway before like the room of judgment in the pacifist run. It's like when you go back to the like Asgore's house and you're like walking through the basement and you sort of have all those encounters with like monsters who kind of
Oh,
explain
yeah.
the backstory between um Asriel and the first human. Instead, you keep encountering Flowey, and he
That's
uh,
right.
reveals a lot more about like his history and his connection to the first human, because the first human is the player's name. It's the name you select at the beginning of the game.
Mhm.
Canonically, they call him Chara, but it's the player's name because like the name of like the main protagonist in the pacifist run is actually revealed to be Frisk. So you either, if you're doing the genocide run, you either essentially through your actions resurrect the spirit of the first human, and let him like kind of overtake your character, and you don't really have any agency as a player after you defeat Sans. Everything's kind of just set in motion.
Mhm.
So you let him essentially like possess the game, or you like let Frisk sort of become the true hero of the game. So I know, yeah, that's getting into more of the deep lore, but it's pretty interesting stuff.
It's really interesting, yeah.
No, I mean, like I'm interested as someone who hasn't done that. I'm guessing a lot of our listeners haven't either, um, because it just seems so brutal. Um, because I cannot imagine playing through this game and just murdering everything.
Right.
Like except for from like a pure, I want to know what it's like perspective, but it is interesting to hear like the way that it plays around with those concepts because it does such the opposite, right? In the neutral into pacifist run, where you have these characters who are so delightful and they're the ones who are sort of talking about these things, and you get a feeling that who Asriel is in the pacifist run. Like you understand sort of what Asriel has gone through to some degree,
Mm.
but not to the degree that I think that you're describing with the genocide runs.
Yeah, for sure. It's more they never really outright explain it, but like one of the key places where you can find out a tiny bit more is like after you've beaten the pacifist route and you go in the epilogue, you go back to all the way back to Toriel's house and the ruins, and you go back to the very flower bed that you fell into at the beginning of the game. You can find Asriel there and you talk to him, and Asriel's like, "Oh, you know, the first human wasn't actually like all that great a person. He hates humanity." And that's like the first real indication, or one of the first real indications outside of the videotapes from the True Lab, that the first human is like not a great person, to put it very lightly. It's very ambiguous in many ways. Like a lot of it is up to interpretation, but the suggestion is like that Asriel was like uh, teased and bullied and abused to a degree by this other person, and yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty it gets pretty dark this game, but
Yeah.
the one thing I will say that's kind of fun about the genocide run is you get the probably the two best boss fights in the game.
You do.
And you get to see two characters kind of have like kind of their coolest moment that they ever get to have in the story, and those two characters are Undyne, who uh essentially like throws herself in front of like a monster kid that you're about to murder, um and like dies, but then sort of comes back to life like stronger than ever, just like through like sheer like heroism. So she actually becomes like more of a powerful hero than you ever get to see her be in the
Mhm.
pacifist playthrough, and that's awesome. And you get this really challenging version of the boss fight with like kind of extra like characterization and development, and one of the best songs in the game.
Mhm.
And then of course at the very end you get to face Sans and explore all of that meta nonsense that he puts you through. It's funny, like when I like first launched my game back into the end of that genocide run, and I talked to Sans, like what he says is just like, oh, like, so I guess I must have killed you 9 times already, or was that 10? And then the fight starts again. And that was just such a like funny reminder of just like, okay, I guess I already died to this guy 9 times last time I played, and then just gave up.
Mhm.
But the fact that he's actually just trying to get the player to stop playing is just such a brilliant concept for a boss fight that is extremely difficult.
Yeah, there's a moment. One last thing on the genocide run. There is a moment, like, and I can't remember when this is. But a character will like call out people who are not doing the genocide run but are watching it as well. They
Yeah.
like call that out and they're like, "Hey, just because you didn't want to do it, but you're curious, so you still like peaked. You're still culpable. Like you're still part of the problem, kind of thing." Like, and again, it plays into the like that spectatorship and the idea that like people are trying to get around, like they're curious, they want to know, so they look it up or they do this, and it's like, no, you're still like part of it. You're still like a willing spectator or participant in the problem. But yeah, Sans' boss fight, I mean, Undead's boss fight is really hard. Sans is obviously even harder, which is ridiculous. But it is such a great wall to like force you to go like, should I really be doing this? It's like, have you really learned anything for the whole playthrough? Like at this point when Sans is just throwing the kitchen sink and everything else at you. And like it's, I think you only can get 2 hits on him, and like the first hit you only do like minimal damage, and then he avoids like every other hit, and then you only get one more hit on him and it's like an insta kill basically. So it's climactic, it's like a duel basically, but it's very hard, very rewarding, not very rewarding, but very, it's intense and it's thematically resonant with the genocide route, even if the genocide route I think feels hard and heavy after doing a pacifist run.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I'm sure we could talk about later on is just like how, like, despite all these characters being so endearing and lovely, and charming and positive, a lot of them have like kind of fatal flaws as well. And
Mhm.
Sans is of course laziness, and you don't really like fully understand where that laziness is coming from as you're doing a pacifist playthrough. But once you get to the end of that genocide playthrough, like you see that it's sort of a side effect of him like being the only other character than Flowey that kind of like sees this sort of meta element and like time loop element where like the characters are just stuck in this cycle of like this playthrough of this game
Yeah.
happening over and over. And he just like wants to prevent like the total destruction, and he's conscious of that, but he's also like he feels hopeless. He knows that he's the only person that can stand up to like Chara, the true villain. But he doesn't necessarily like believe in himself, and so basically, like the way that the Sans fight plays out is like you just like keep trying to like attack him and survive his attacks, as he's just like dodging everything until he like basically like loses the will to fight, and he kind of just like falls asleep, and then you
Mm.
can just like land the killing blow at
Yep.
that point. Yeah, I didn't get there though. I just let him kill me.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds depressing. It's funny because like my experience with this game is not one of depression.
No.
It's one of delight, right? Like I think that I'm glad that we've talked so much about the genocide route because I think it's such an interesting mirror of what um a normal or pacifist, which I think most people probably have gone for, route in this game is like that. And I think that probably it becomes more powerful because of that. And we haven't even really talked about Undyne, except for the fact that her genocide boss fight is so hard. But Undyne, if I wasn't going to pick Papyrus and I wasn't going to pick Sans, there's so many good characters in this
Right.
game. Undyne might be my favorite character because of the way that she, like, the date you have with Undyne, which you can and have to do to get the pacifist ending, is so funny, and like how intense she is, and like the romance that you get with Undyne is so fun. Like there's just so much delight to be had in this game that I don't know how I would do a genocide run, and Undyne's a big part of it.
Right. I do feel like sometimes the memification of this game is like so crazy, but like I do love that date scene with Undyne. She's just like a complete disaster lesbian and she just totally owns it. She's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make spaghetti together," and she like you punch the tomatoes and she like stirs the pasta by stabbing the bowl. And it's like and then like she's like turn the heat up and you turn it up until like her whole house is on fire and then she's just like, "Oh well, I guess we better go somewhere else then." And it's just like damn. It's like and it's like amazing that like realistically most of these characters don't have much more than an hour of screen time like at any time. And that you remember like almost every single facet of every single one of them, right? Like Undyne is like really intimidating for like most of the time that you're running through the waterfall area until she like basically turns into like a Sundari and she's like, "Oh no, I can't kill you. Like I'm not going to kill you now. We're going to be best friends and I'm going to prove it to everybody because I hate you so much." Basically, it's like she like totally leans into some tropes but in really fun ways that just really elevate her character.
And the
But
Sundari plane is really the secretly the
oh
best character in
oh
this
my
entire
god, the
game.
Sundari plane is so funny. I just it's such a trope that I love and fall for every time that I just have to engage with that and just like, oh, not that I'm doing that or anything. Like it's just endearing. But yeah, Undyne is great. I also Napster Bluke is like such a small part of the game too, but I always have appreciation for little Trash Ghost and his love of Napster and like LimeWire and stuff like that. Like you can tell Toby Fox is like absolute like millennial age, can't you? Like if you had
Oh yeah.
no idea, you'd just be like, yeah, he's definitely like 30 or something. I think he's 32, so he's like a little older than me, but yeah.
Yeah, I love when you're in the waterfall area when you go into Nafstabluke's house and like there's just like those three like tunes he composed that are just like these really like kind of like one note like spooky sounds like ba 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 ba
Yeah,
ba.
there's like
The
yeah,
spooky wave.
Yeah.
yeah, jingle all the way, but in like just like a synth wave spooky sounds, basically. It's
And
great.
he's just like, all right, I'm just gonna go lie on the ground and feel like garbage. You're welcome to join me if you want.
Mood.
And then like if you're like wait for like 30 seconds or longer, you just like start having this like sort of zen experience, like
Yeah.
as like the background becomes space and you get like this ambient like yoga music playing. Pretty
I've
great
never waited
interaction.
long enough to drop acid, but
It-
I wish I had now.
yeah, right. Oh.
You know, I love all those characters. But you know what character I don't love? Alana knows who I'm about to talk about. Who is it?
Alphas.
Alphys. Oh my god.
She's like so screwed up though, like so
Yeah.
screwed up.
So screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, like, she's fascinating in her own way, but like the fact that like at least 50% of the people I know who are on the internet a lot are almost exactly like her. I'm like, oh my god, please stop.
She is that
Please, no one cares about your Twitter updates anymore.
she is that encapsulation. She is exactly that. Yeah, she's definitely a lot, and that's absolutely her intention. But like, yeah, I hate that I identify a lot with Alphys in many different ways. Mostly just the way that she over explains and over apologizes all the time. Just the way she stumbles around.
I
But
don't
the
think she can over apologize for the
okay,
record. I
fair.
think that she does some pretty evil stuff.
She does
Yeah,
do some pretty
she's done
evil
the worst
stuff.
stuff of like anybody
Yeah,
except for Flowey, for
yeah,
sure.
she really has. But yeah, I like Alphys, but yeah, of all of them, she's definitely my least favorite. But like, she has like one of the most interesting character arcs, obviously, and she's like a big. She's not closet bisexual. She's extremely bisexual. Like She is in love with Asgore. She's in love most with Undyne, and she talks about like everything. She's very much a Tumblr girl as well. Like she completely embodies that kind of stereotype.
Yeah, and in the Switch version, you get to fight her like Mew Mew, like essentially like
Yes,
sex doll
you do.
that she,
Yeah.
that she bought. Yeah, just a deeply like horny and online character for sure, who's done
Mhm.
some very terrible things.
Who made Metaton
I mean,
Yeah,
through?
that's actually pretty great.
it is, yeah, and honestly, like I think the way they, although I know I was supposed to be annoyed as I was walking through the hot area, and like I'm like, okay, please stop with the updates. No one cares about anything on your Twitter. You can imagine she gets like one like every like 13 tweets. Um, like no one cares at all about what you're talking about, but like you still like say your garbage out into the ether. But like I still thought that like the way that again like gets to the creativity of this game and like the density of this game, like the one time like she gives you like incorrect directions on one of the lasers. She's like, oh, it's going to be like orange orange blue, and it turns out to be like blue blue orange or whatever. I think the way they leverage her character in that dungeon or in that dungeon area or whatever, is really cool.
Hmm.
And it gets to like sort of the density of the way they leverage characterization and gameplay at the same time, and really fast. I say they, with Toby Fox did this. Again, like it's a masterclass. Like no one else is doing this work. No one else has tried to do this work in the last 10 years, and when they have tried, they've failed.
Mhm.
And I think that is a great example of it.
Right, and what a lot of what Alphys does is like a total mirror or inverse of like everything that Toriel has done. Like you've already had like some nice character guide you through a dungeon, so you're like, oh, she's gonna do the same thing, and like she makes mistakes, and you just kind of accept it. It's like, oh, okay, fair enough. But then you get to the end, and then Metaton's like, oh wait, she's like fabricated all of this, and she just wanted to be the hero of the story, basically. And it's like, oh, it's like a real moment of like, oh my god, like Alphys is like actually not that there's like she's not been unkind to you, even if she's done like some terrible things, but she is definitely like trying to get attention. It's like a bit of a cry for help on her part, but yeah, it completely like inverts like what the first area taught you, but not in a way that I think would affect a playthrough at that point, because obviously, you'd being almost killed by a killer robot at that point. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way the game manages to leverage that characterization is really interesting in the pacifist route as well, which we'll talk about more in a second here. But like, I think that um, after you get through all that stuff with her, and you have to fight what's the name of her robot again? I can't remember.
Metaton,
Metaton.
but Metaton
Metaton.
Metaton EX.
Metaton EX, which I think is one of the most creative boss fights in this game. Honestly, like I because I when I beat it, because it took me 2 times, like I was at like 2 health for like the last like 8 turns, which actually turns out to be a great strategic idea, because like when you pose for the audience, like your
Yeah.
popularity goes up like so dramatically
Hmm.
every time when you're at really low health, which
Mhm.
I was a lot in that fight. And every fight, like I'm so bad at this game. I had to like hand the switch over to Alana for one of the fights because I can't do this right now, and I had to finish. um but like it's I think that fight's great. I think it gets to like how creative all these boss fights are too. Because we didn't talk about the Undyne fight in like the normal route too much, but like
Right.
it's really interesting too, because like you have to like it's like a bullet hell, which I can't believe we haven't said until now. Like
Oh yeah,
like
the
all
game's a
of
bullet hell.
Yeah.
game is a bullet hell. And like the Undyne fight, like you have to like for most of them you have to turn to like deflect the bullets. And there'll be like these yellow ones that will like go behind you like in really creative ways, but you're also escaping from it. Whereas in the Megaton, whatever, the Metaton fight, you are trying to get ratings, and like you can actually get ratings by being hit. Like it's so creative. Like
Mhm.
I feel like when you think about Undertale, like it's so living in the tradition of traditional RPGs, but like it so rewards you for thinking outside of those boxes, and it is such a rewarding experience in those ways, even though I'm not good at those ways.
Right. The soul, which is the thing you control, basically like a heart in a box, and you have to avoid hits, blah blah blah. But like so many different fights like change the color of that soul.
Hmm.
And as you were saying, like the yellow one is the bullets. We haven't talked about Muffet, who's the spider boss. She turns your heart purple, which means you're like stuck on like three lines, like a note.
God, I
Um,
sucked at that boss too.
that is the hardest fight for me in a normal route, because like she just does so much damage to you, and I find like dodging the croissants I can dodge, the spiders I can sometimes dodge. It's when I'm climbing up and being chased by her pet
Yeah.
cupcake that like, oh god. And yeah, like every fight is so unbelievably creative. My favorite thing about the Metaton fight is if you eat, you can buy junk food next to the hotel, and it's literally like garbage. If you eat garbage, your ratings go down.
Oh yeah, I had to cheese it with like getting good food. I had to
Oh
go
yeah,
buy like as many good burgers as I could.
glam burgers.
And that like
Like,
that raised it by like 600 every time.
yep, glam
Which I was
burgers.
like, wait a second, how do I do this before? Oh yeah, I cheesed it with items.
Pretty
Which you can
much.
still do, which is really cool.
Eh,
I just had an inventory full of garbage, and so that fight took me so long. So I was just
yep.
like eating garbage and trying to survive. But yeah, I mean, like on like the note of bullet hell, like we've been like talking about this game a lot in terms of like the story and characters, which are all amazing. But this game's fun as hell. Like
Hmm.
it is so much fun to play, and like a lot of that is just like trying to dodge attacks, like seeing like all the different attack patterns of the different enemies, and like how that's tied to like who they are as characters, and all the boss fights, yeah, having those like little changes, like Papyrus, like having like the blue heart, and suddenly like you're kind of playing like a platformer, where your heart's always on the ground, and like you can like jump, or like yeah, it gets Metaton EX, where you can essentially like shoot and like try to get more ratings by like as like you're dodging the different attacks, you're also like firing at Metaton's heart, and like that's boosting your ratings as well. And you can also like kind of like lean into how comfortable you're feeling as a player with these fights. Like in the Undyne fight, you can like taunt her so that her attacks actually come like faster at you. That makes the
Yes.
fight go faster, which is really interesting. And then in the Metaton fight, you can either um, like do like a pose that's like, or like a boast or something that like means like you basically like tell the audience of the fight, because like Metaton's constantly like broadcasting to like a live audience of monsters, that you're not going to get hit that turn, and then like if you don't, you get like big ratings. Or you can like, if you're less comfortable and you're just trying to like survive, you can do the, I think it's the heel turn command, where it's
Hmm.
essentially like you taunt the audience so that they want to see you like get hurt. So then if you get hit during that turn, the ratings actually go up there. You can like eat your glam burgers or something. And I just love how like there's just all this variety in terms of interaction just within a single fight even.
The best Metaton moment though is like the full-on Celeste opera moment, like way
Oh
before
yeah.
that boss fight, which is like
Oh my
straight.
god.
It's like the singing and everything, where it's just like you will die, and it's like it's
Sad,
beautiful.
sad, sad.
Sad, sad, sad. That's right. Cry, cry, cry.
Yeah, it's so good, and like, we've only talked a little bit about the fact that this game is so influenced by other games, but like, and it's not really that influenced by Final Fantasy VI, but obviously that scene is influenced by Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
But like, it has the way that it plays around with enemies, and like the dialogue they get with their attacks in Earthbound
Hmm.
Mhm.
or something like Moon, which, true story, like even though like people reference Moon all the time, and I think it's appropriate in terms of Undertale, and Toby Fox himself does, he had never played Moon.
Yeah.
Like he had just read about Moon.
Hmm.
Um and so and Moon, like if Moon had been localized here, like it is such a predecessor of what this game is doing, even though I think Undertale is way better than Moon. Alex and I talked about it on a podcast a while ago, and I thought it was just okay. Um, but yeah, I think that its influences show in so many ways, but the bullet hell is not really one of the ways that it shows up. Um, I mean, obviously, like the bullet hell is pulling from other bullet hell games, but like it's not. one of the games that people talk about or people think about in terms of the influences on Undertale.
Yeah, I mean, it's really an aspect of Undertale that just feels like completely original and like tied to its identity is like no matter which route you're playing, whether you're like attacking monsters or trying to like converse and end things peacefully with them, like you're always on defense with bullet hell, and like
Mhm.
that just no matter what route you're playing, you're getting like great gameplay out of that. Just because bullet hells are fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that maybe for me in this run through, that became most apparent in my fight against Asgore. So we've sort of talked about this, but like the story of Undertale is you trying to escape the underworld, and at some point, you're kind of told that like you have to have this, like that you as the spirit of a human can exit, but then someone else tells you that I think it's actually the same person, that you actually need to have the spirit of a monster to escape. And even if you've done a neutral route and you haven't fought any monsters or killed any monsters until the end, you pretty much have to fight the final boss of the neutral route. Well, sort of the final boss, because then Flowey shows up. That's Asgore. Who Asgore is such a pure person.
Yeah.
Gosh, I love Asgore.
Oh.
I love so many characters in this game so much.
uh,
Like he's so delightful. He loves flowers. He wants to just like you just the kind of dude you want to have go have a beer with. Um,
he is a sweetheart,
he's
and
so
the
great.
whole game like sells you on that as well. Like on a neutral or a pacifist route, the game is always like, "Oh, Asgore is such a sweetie. He's such a fluff ball. He's like he loves this, he loves that." Like everyone is so positive, and Asgore doesn't want to fight you either. Like when you find him, he's watering that like field of golden yellow flowers, and he's just like shocked to see you, and he's like, "Oh no." He like has this realization. He's like, "Oh, I've got to do the thing." Because like ultimately I am the hopes and dreams of the underworld or the underground. But like he's such a stoic and lovely and noble figure. And he's like one of his like musical themes is like called Mountain Song in German, and he is like the total embodiment of like the mountain king asleep in the mountain trope in like Germanic folklore. In that like he will hide away until he is needed, and like he's needed for his people now because the seventh and final soul is here. um, and so he will come out as much as he doesn't want to and fight you. And like he does that by destroying the mercy bar. Like you cannot mercy him. You have to fight him. And if you've done like no fighting before this is the first time you actually have to engage with that mechanic. And it's like even like redoing it this time, I'm always like, do I have to do this? Like, is this safe? Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah,
like
I had the
hurt
same
him.
thing.
Yeah, it's like scary because he's not easy either. Like, he's not the easiest fight in the world because he's got like so many different moves that require a lot of dodging and a lot of like you have to pay attention to colors and eye flashes and everything, and it's a lot. And the music's amazing too. This is like probably one of my favorite tracks in the game, Asgore's boss fight music. But yeah, on the flip side, on the genocide route, Asgore's name's always written in red, so you're always like aware that he's like the one who's going to kill you.
Mhm.
But this one, like, even though Undyne talks him up at certain points, she also does later on go like, "Oh, he's probably going to be really nice to you and everything." So yeah, it's such a great boss fight.
Yeah, I think like Asgore's characterization is the one that like kind of hit a new note with me on this playthrough for some reason. Um it's just like yeah, he is like you do hear about him like being such like a great guy, and like you meet him and he is just like seems like just like the kindest leader like a civilization could ask for. And I mean like that's because like he stepped to the task. Like I mean he lost two kids
Mhm.
to humanity. He's watched like all his people be like oppressed in like this underground world for I mean who knows how long, and he's been determined to lead them out and like determined to do what he has to in order to see that through. And part of that is the fact that he's probably killed six kids
Yeah.
before this game started. And when you meet him in that room, he's just like, okay, I guess we're gonna have to do this, and he's just like, follow me, and then like you're walking behind him, and then like the line that like really got to me this time was just like it'll be just like going to the dentist.
Yep.
Like that's it's a funny line, but it's also like a deeply twisted line that could only come from someone who's like seen things and done things and like lives with like a deep regret in his heart despite the fact that he still has like his people's best interests in heart.
Mm.
And yeah, and then you do that fight, and like you can tell like by both like his position, like his sort of like his face is like facing down. You can't really like see his eyes during the
Yeah.
fight. He like can't even like look at you in the face as he's fighting you, which just shows like he's probably like not fighting at the peak of his powers either. Um and like if you talk to him enough, like it weakens both like his attack and defense, because like you're pleading to him like, we don't have to fight, please don't fight. And then you like still have to push through it nonetheless. And yeah, I mean, you talked to Zach a bit about like getting emotional in moments, and this was, I think, the moment of this game that I got the most emotional in this playthrough. And it's also the only fight I died on at this playthrough. Maybe that emotion got to me a little bit. um, but yeah, it's an amazing fight too, with an awesome setup and a great song.
Yeah. He's lost everything. Like, even his wife, she's left him because he's taken up this, like, mantle to break the barrier, basically. Like, two kids, his partner, and yet he still has to be, like, the king and do the thing that everybody wants him to do, and that's break the barrier so that the separation doesn't happen anymore and they can do whatever they want to do out there, which is just freedom, really. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a heck of a fight.
But that's also where, if you're doing a neutral pacifist run, this game becomes maybe even more interesting. Because Flowey comes down and just decimates you over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And one of the most fascinating fights in this game, just because like graphically, it's totally different. Like it just looks different from anything else in this game. And you keep going back to your save file and you keep having to reload and it keeps glitching, and like that's when like the meta narrative element of this game becomes so much more on the nose, is after this fight. And
Because
I think it's go ahead.
sorry. Also, if you're playing on PC, which I only did like the first time I played, I've always played on Switch since, just for the convenience. But
Mhm.
like your game actually crashes
Yeah.
um when Flowey's like kind of messing you up all those times. Like he says he's like gonna kill you, he's gonna like destroy the world, and then like you're back at your desktop.
Yeah.
You actually have to like go back to like reopen the game. And I just remember like the first time that happened to me, I think it was like 2 a.m. I just like
Yeah.
powered through the game, and I was just like, I was genuinely a little scared.
I was exactly the same the first time I played it. I played it on PC, and it still works on Steam Deck as well. Like, it boots you out, it fully kicks you out the game and back to the Steam homepage, and so you have to load it back up again. And then it freezes briefly, so it does all that. I know Switch and PS4, I think it just kicks you back to the title screen. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, which is totally understandable. Like, it's a lot harder to do something like that with those consoles. But it's really clever in the middle of the fight because, like, again, it like plays on everything you've built up, and like one of the keywords with Undertale for all three routes is, the one phrase you'll see over and over again. It fills you with determination. Be determined. Determination is like the main thing that you see through this game. And if there's like ever like moment where the soul needs to be determined, it's when you're being killed over and over and over and over again, and it's that determination that's like helping you get through it. Even when like you are being kicked out of the game, like there's got to be something instinctive in you where you're just like, no, I've got to go back into it and find out what's going on. But like, if it's 2 a.m. like it was for Aleks and it was for me the first time I played the game, I'd have been like, uh, I really hope I haven't lost like 4 hours of progress, like, or however much longer it took.
Yeah, no, I mean, even because like what they try to do in the because I was playing on the Switch as well, is they try to show like an almost glitched computer screen, and then
Mm.
it kicks you back out to it like over and over and over again. Um, you can tell what they're trying to do, but like it definitely doesn't have the same impact. Like I feel like if I was getting kicked out of the game over and over and over again, like that's powerful. Like the
Mhm.
power that Flowey is showing. Like I can literally crash your whole game. You don't matter. My power is so absolute that you don't even get to play against me anymore. So I kind of wish that I had that experience. I haven't, but I think it's super cool. But they do a fair job of replicating it in the Switch version. But yeah, I mean, like after that, like and you during that fight, the souls of the six. Like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the souls of the six other humans eventually sort of step in to help you
Mhm.
take that fight down. Um, and that's sort of the end of that route. But then it kicks you back out and it says like, "Hey, like maybe Undyne knows something that can help you with the final route, help you discover more about this world." And that's what then leads you to the pacifist route, which is, I'm not. There's not a true ending to this game, obviously, but I think if someone was gonna say there was a true ending to this game, they would probably say that it's the pacifist route.
Oh,
It
for
has to
sure.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's certainly the most emotionally powerful, I think.
Right.
Um,
And interestingly, you only really get the hint towards like how to begin working towards like the true pacifist ending if after the Photoshop Flowey fight, you kind of get an option to like kill or spare him, and like
Mhm.
it won't actually affect like this is like your one opportunity to like mercilessly like kill a character, and it won't like affect like any progress. But if you do decide to spare him, and you have to do it like multiple times because Flowey doesn't want to accept your mercy, like he's reluctant to. If you do that, like then he gives you like sort of the hint that like, oh, you need to like become better friends with Alphys or something, and that sort of like clues you into how to get the true pacifist.
huh. I didn't know that because I've always just selected because I was trained to select mercy every time.
Oh yeah.
Not because I'm a good person, but because the game taught me that was the way to play. That's interesting. And yeah, and then like you get the true pacifist route, which I don't want to go through like all the ins and outs of you going on a date. And then like the two people who the person you go on a date with, it turns out is really into Undyne. Um, but I do think that the final boss fight um hits notes that very few games do
Mhm.
in terms of emotional power, in terms of like you saving your friends from this. It's not really an evil, that's certainly not what the game is going for, but this power of loneliness and desperation that you are fighting against, I think is incredibly powerful.
Right. And you've got it like totally recontextualized because of everything you've seen in the True Lab, right? You know that the whole time Flowey has actually just been Asriel. And now Asriel is just powered by these souls, but it's like that detachment that Aleks was talking about earlier. Like, um, Asriel basically takes that. Um, Flowey is like got no emotional impact at all, but you can see that like Asriel gets closer and closer to that because throughout the fight he's like begging you to stop, and like the further and further through you get through that Asriel Dreamer fight, which again it's just like that's the moment I like teared up in this, was like once you get past the crazy bullet hell beginning. I was like, and then you go through like the cutscene where he like gets the wings and everything, and then you like die over and over, and then you've got like 0.00001% health left, and he's like screaming and like begging you to stop fighting him, and that's where you really realize after going through the motions of like saving all of your friends, like you have to individually save Alphys and Undyne, and then you have to do Sans and Papyrus, and then Toriel and Asgore as pairs. It then says like, oh, there's one more person I need to save. I never outright says it, but it's Asriel. Asriel is the seventh person you have to save because of everything he's been through. Like he's been so isolated for like so long that he's lost that like connection, and he's trying to get it back, and you're gonna give it to him. You're gonna be the one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a fight, and like it's got like multiple like movements to it as well. Like
Mm.
my favorite part is when you can just when you like need to like appeal to like the souls of like kind of like the main cast, and so you have to like suddenly you're interacting with like a version of Undyne or a version of Papyrus or a version of Sans that's like fallen into despair, and like you're now using the act commands
That's
with like
right.
all of the knowledge of who those characters are and how you've gotten to know to them to like appeal to them and like kind of like remind them of like what who they are and what they live for, and like you're just going through like the main cast one by one, like restoring their like sense of self, and that's sort of like the thing you do before you get to like confront like Asriel directly, and it's just such a great moment.
Yeah, I mean that's the moment for me that like always gets me. And I think it cuts through all in almost 10 years. Guess this game is almost 10 years old now, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts through all the memification of this game.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts through all even the meta narrative elements of it, which I think are powerful and interesting, but like it gets to the emotional heart of this game.
Mm,
Like that, like you like when you're doing those act commands, it's not hard at all to
Right.
like select those things. Like
yeah.
you know these people so well. They are burned into your memory. Like I could have done this fight, and I haven't played this game in 6 years. I could have done this fight and still remembered pretty much what all of those things meant
Mm-hmm.
because those people are so impactful um to me as an individual and as a game player. So like I guess it does cut through like the meta narrative elements to the point to where like it's so strong our emotional connection. And I do think that like everything else this game is doing where it's breaking the fourth wall and asking us all these questions, like when it asks us to respect these people or monsters or whatever you want to call them, to respect them and respect what they love and respect who they are. In that moment, like I feel like it is like a moment of fiction that is so powerful, like only a video game could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have anything to do with the meta narrative, even though like the meta narrative is part of what has made them so powerful. And I think that to me, like it is that sequence that like distinguishes this game, where it's asking us to interact with it in a way that many JRPGs do, right? Like it's about the power of friendship or whatever, but like in a way that is so genuine.
You're actually physically applying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
it's you
exactly.
pressing the button to say like, oh, it's Sans, so I will make a joke. Oh, it's Toriel, so I will give her a hug. Oh, it's Alphys, so I will like compliment her or something. Like you pressing those buttons in the same way that you would just press attack in like Dragon Quest or something. But it's so easy in this game. Whereas like yeah, like you said, it's just like no. If they made a movie about Undertale, it wouldn't work. Like it would miss something for me, and it would be that like again, like the meta narrative is part of it, and it's super interesting, but it is like that. It does the same thing that Nier does. Like you make the choice is to press the button to make the choice, select the ending, to delete the save file, to do this. It's like the same thing essentially. Is like you were saying, hey, you're Asgore. I want to like say hello or sorry or thank you, and that's that you've saved them. Like those actions are the choices you've made.
Yeah, and it's just a sign that the game has taught you something, and even
Mhm.
though like it's just like teaching you basically like about its own like internal logic and like its own like fiction and characterizations, like then like in like the sort of epilogue of the game, like it asks you to apply that to the way you go about the real world in a similar gesture to Moon, where it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
like what we want as characters, the characters basically tell you, um is for you to like take this further, to take this like outside of the game, um in a way that I think is really important, and that I think like through like all the meta narrative stuff the game managed to do up to that point just feels like even more because you've already been addressed by the game as a player multiple times and for multiple different effects. But here it's just like the real meaning of this game, if you feel a connection to these characters, share that same love to like the world outside of the game,
Mhm.
which I always appreciate.
Yeah, I agree. And I really don't have anything more to say about it, but except that I do want to have one brief aside here and talk about Deltarune for a second. That I think
Mm.
Deltarune does some really interesting work to complicate what I think Toby Fox may, and I may think is sort of the naivete, and I love the naivete of Undertale. I think it's beautiful. I think it's important. I think it's real. The message of it is, but I think that Deltarune is starting to play around with those concepts of choice and who we want to be, and who and love, in really fascinating ways. And so like I don't want to talk too much about Deltarune except for that I think that I love that with a spiritual successor that Toby Fox is talking back to the message of Undertale and
Mm.
maybe complicating it. Um, and I think that that makes Deltarune a piece that I am so interested to see where it goes.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm very
I,
excited.
I,
I
I
have
could do a podcast on the first two chapters right now.
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
I
I need
don't
to
remember it well
replay.
enough, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I've only
otherwise,
played them once each, and yeah, I would love to, but
certainly worthy.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it complicates things in such interesting ways, and you can see the maturation of Toby Fox, beyond, and I think it's less meta and more net meta in the same way. Like it's just such an interesting piece, and I think it's mostly interesting as a thought piece now, and I'm curious to see if it can manage to drive home emotionally the way that Undertale does. I doubt it, but we'll see.
It's hard to match that, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, just like Undertale's premise is just so simple and confident and pure that
Mhm.
like I'm sure Deltarune will be fascinating. It already is fascinating, but to match that, like the impact that can come from like doing something so pure and like executing it like so seamlessly, like it's a hard thing to follow. But yeah, I love what Deltarune is so far, and I'm very curious to see where it goes.
yeah, and I think that that's a good way for us to end, sort of talking about Undertale. I think Undertale is a pure video game.
Mhm.
It is maybe the purest video game, in terms of its messaging, in terms of its gameplay, in terms of everything. Like it just feels like a pure video game in a pure video game. Um, that only could be done in a pure video game. Like it's such has such a clarity of vision, that I think is unmatched. And I don't think that Toby Fox himself could do it again. I think he just struck gold in the way that so many creators do when they're young. And I think as he gets older and his emotions and ideas get more complicated, then his games will be more complicated, and so there won't be that purity anymore.
He's got Ed Sheeran money now for rearranging Ed Sheeran songs for Pokemon games, so yeah.
Oh God, that's a thing.
He rearranged an Ed Sheeran song for the Pokemon DLC, yes.
Oh, I knew he did like music for the Pokemon games. I didn't know Ed Sheeran was involved at
Oh,
all.
Yeah,
yes, yeah. Well, there you go. There's the knowledge.
yeah,
Not to say that he doesn't deserve his flowers, because, geez, Toby Fox is like, has any like indie dev had like the meteoric rise, especially with like a first party Japanese developer, like under Nintendo? Like he's like played Smash with Sakurai, and like it's kind of crazy to see that he's gone from like making this like tiny little video game on Kickstarter to like it being localized in Japan by 8-4 and it being such a huge success that both like Nintendo, HAL, and Game Freak were all like, "Hey, we want you." Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think he also like writes like a column in
He
if not
does.
Famitsu, then some other like major Japanese video game publication.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
yeah. But I think he deserves it, right? Like it's
Yeah,
this I mean, like we just podcasted very recently about the top 10 PS4 RPGs, and it placed on that list,
it did.
even for a game that we didn't we don't think of as a PS4 RPG, and none of us played it on a PS4.
No.
Nope.
It's still placed, and I think it speaks to the power of this game, and it still holds up. And I'm glad that we got to talk about it. And as always, both of you brought so many new things to the table, and I really appreciate that. So I know we've talked about what Toby Fox has been up to after Undertale and what he's up to next. Let's talk about what Retro Encounter is up to next. How's that for a transition? Not very good. I didn't get a reaction from anybody.
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna snip that like little laugh and like use it somewhere. Don't worry.
All right, so next week, this is an episode that we've already recorded, and let me tell you, it was a time. We brought Aleks and I both participated in creating a Final Fantasy tier list, so where we put every Final Fantasy game, every mainline one except for 11, and we replaced it with Tactics into a Final Fantasy tier list. And let me tell you, there are some great choices and there's some bad choices. And I'm only blaming Aleks for some of the bad choices.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, blame me.
I do.
It's a fun listen. It's a long listen, but it's a fun listen. So look forward to that. We also have, after that, next month, coming up an episode about DLCs, where we look at some of our favorite DLCs of all time, and talk about sort of the impact of those DLCs. And then our game journal for August is Dragon Age Inquisition, continuing sort of our Year of the Dragon playthrough of Dragon Age. We've done the first two, and now we're going to finish up with Inquisition on the heels of Veilguard coming out. I know Aleks will be a part of that, and I believe he's enjoying his playthrough so far.
Yeah, it's a solid game, that's for sure.
And the last thing I'll say is that next month, not next month, but the month after in September, you might see us playing some shorter games. I don't want to get too far into what that is, but I'll let Solosi explain more of that in the coming weeks. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us retro@rpgfan.com. You can also get in touch with us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Twitch, we have streams almost every day from Scott. We have a bunch of YouTube videos uploaded. You can find us usually as RPG Fan or RPG Fan.com in most of those places. And you can also find us on Discord. RPG Fan has a Discord where you can come in and chat with us. We also have a shop, actually two separate sort of shops at this point, even though you can get to them from the same link on RPG Fan. We have one from Public selling t-shirts and mugs and other sort of memorabilia and merchandise if you want to represent RPG Fan. We also have a review book published by Hyperplay RPG of 300 pages of RPG Fan reviews distilled into sort of a card form that you often will find on Instagram. It's very cool. We've got multiple copies in my house, and I love them. We also have two other podcasts, Random Encounter once every 2 weeks about randomness, usually current events, usually whatever games people have been playing most recently, especially most recent releases. We also have Rhythm Encounter the other week of the other 2 weeks, about RPG fan music, or not RPG fan music, but RPG music. That we don't have a lot of music ourselves. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. We love feedback, especially the 5-star variety. And before we close out, let's find out how to get in touch with the panelists, starting with you, Aleks.
You can email me your WD Gaster fan theories at alexfraniczek@gmail.com. Also, I forgot to mention it. Undertale Yellow, a fan game that came out less than a year ago. I played it. It's really good. If you want to learn more about it, I wrote a thing about it on rpgfan.com. Definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of Undertale.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Alana?
I have a Blue Sky, which is just Alana.Hagues at Blue Sky or whatever. Or you can come see my work at nintendolife.com.
And if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me, ZachW@rpgfan.com, or you can find me on RPG Fans Discord as ZachW. And that's it, y'all. That is our chat about Undertale. I hope that the audio turns out better than the previous episode. I think it will. And I hope so, because I'm editing this episode. And thank you, listeners. Good night and good luck.